Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, our valuable audience joining us from all around the world, colleagues and friends, welcome today's discussion with Mr. Rashid Al-Balushi on Abu Dhabi's story on resilience and growth. This discussion is part of the business year's special report on evaluating Abu Dhabi's key sectors on resiliency and growth during and after the pandemic period. Today, my guest, His Excellency Rashid Al-Balushi, join us from a very important organization in Abu Dhabi Department of Economic Development. With him, we're going to look at Abu Dhabi's response to the pandemic, resultant economic challenges, and discussing the key precautionary measures taken and lessons learned. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you all His Excellency Rashid Al-Balushi. Welcome, sir.
It's a pleasure to join you and join the team to discuss the experience of Abu Dhabi in specific and UAE in general. Thank you for hosting this panel.
Thank you so much. So just before our discussion today, it's going to be between the both of us today, as Mr. Tariq bin Hindi could not be able to join us today. On the positive side, which means that I have you all to myself for almost an hour. So thank you for your time again. IMF, with the World Economic Outlook, has predicted a global economic contraction of around 4.9% for 2020. But the good news is, for the 2021, we're expecting again a global growth of 5.4%. Keeping these figures in mind, from a policy perspective, can you please elaborate to us the resiliency gaps that we have seen during this pandemic period and how governments, companies, and institutions address such challenges moving forward?
Sure. Despite the fact that this COVID-19 pandemic had a very severe effect on the whole world, actually it froze the supply chain from everywhere. People were at the beginning of the crisis. They were facing two big challenges. The health care, because people were not aware how bad, how severe health-wise this is going to go to. Then on the other hand, there's another challenge, is the export and import of goods, products, services. Because again, the first reaction was to close up and try to take care of the issues internally. Here, we've seen other countries, other economies, they took advantage of that because there were opportunities in that. And when it comes to Abu Dhabi specifically, the system was very resilient. Actually, right at the beginning of the crisis, the government had took the whole issue seriously. And they have taken a very strong actions trying to prevent such a disease. And if you remember, if you go back a few months ago, the first statement came out from the government, from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. This is a crisis. Make sure that two things are available: medicine and food. And this is why immediately entities like us, for example, the Department of Economic, we had worked with our stakeholders and we had thought out of the box to provide both food and medicine. The food was our main target here. We made sure that foods are not even available. It's available at the acceptable price that had no change, and to show how the resiliencies of the decisions, we have cooperated with the private sector to distribute the logistic centers for the food, for example. And since we didn't want people not to leave their homes, these people, I'm talking about the community, local as much as the expat. So the process of serving them was through me, for example, I'll just pick up my phone, put my orders, pay through my credit cards, then the supplier would deliver that to my home. All what they've done, just opened the door, picked up my goods, and went back to the house. Of course, the inspection was there, the processes of protecting everybody was there. This is why the results that we see very positive in terms of running the organizations. Immediately, the government decided that everybody should work from home. Guess what? It was an amazing, even to us, 98% of the services that are provided by the Department of Economic in Abu Dhabi were done remotely. Were done through the website. We had not a single employee staying in these offices. And we have even calculated the efficiencies, the productivity. We've seen the productivity is going high. Private sectors, they have played a very strong role in providing the services and products to the community, of course, with the support and with the strong communication between the private sector and the government. And that was our first reaction toward this issue. And this is how resilient we would see the system here in Abu Dhabi.
Absolutely. And I think one of the very positive aspects we have seen in the country had been the immediate response taken by the government. And there were quite a lot of incentive packages which were announced within the first couple of weeks of the lockdown. Could you please elaborate a little bit on these incentive packages that were announced? How, in your opinion, it affected both the private sector and the government?
Of course, locking down would have an effect on every single person. And as a government, one of the main pillars to support the economy is the SME. So the first reaction went toward the SME. And there are immediately some actions were taken. The first one was renewing the license, all the penalties, all the fines were waived. Then, like there were other issues that were coming into the system. Two is the 20% rebate to some highly affected sectors. Even with the laborers, the government had played a very strong role to make sure that despite the challenges that the private sectors are going to, the salaries and the protection, the food is going to all laborers who are in the community of Abu Dhabi. And that is protecting everybody. Then there were like other issues coming from I'm talking about the department here, but there are other services that were provided. The speed of doing the businesses and the speed of seeing the services in terms of renewing or following up their products, they were put in there. They were put immediately in their hands. From the government point of view, one of the other elements that I'm talking about is we made sure that if a government entity is using the services and products of the private sector, within 30 days, the payment must be done to make sure that the cash are available. And there are other initiatives related to the banking. For example, the interest rate were frozen for some times. And if there were challenges facing the private sector of paying the money, they were easing the products. They were easing, the payment to the private sectors. These kind of initiatives, and they are, frankly speaking, there are a lot. There are a lot of initiatives that were put on the table for the private sector, especially.
Absolutely. And Mr. Al-Balushi, you and I have had the pleasure of working together for, if I'm not mistaken, for over a decade now. And you have been, and it's been my great pleasure actually, and you have been representing the country, of course, internationally from an investment perspective, as well as your previous role as the head of the Abu Dhabi Stock Exchange. Now I would like to look on a little bit of Abu Dhabi's attractiveness as an investment destination as well. So from an investment facilitator's perspective, and creating an ecosystem that enables ease of doing business. How does the current crisis enhance Emirates' resiliency for future shocks? And how more further we ensure the investors and organizations doing business in the country?
See, what makes Abu Dhabi unique is a very clear strategy with very clear objectives, projects, and the ability for all the stakeholders, being government, being private, to work together side by side with the same rhythm to reach the objectives of the whole Emirates. And this is why you have said that we know each other from a decade. If you go back from 10 years ago till today, you see the clear ladder that Abu Dhabi is going up to. And very strong. Today, when we talk about Abu Dhabi, for example, it's ranked number 12 of ease of doing business. The financial ranking, Abu Dhabi is 7th globally. So these are positions and histories for Abu Dhabi, for investors to rely and think about. 2020, it's a challenge that faced everybody. But again, the strong factors, the strong opportunities which are around Abu Dhabi will always stay there. And here, when we've seen the slowing down of the global economy, we dig down into the opportunities that we are having and trying to showcase to the direct and foreign direct and foreign indirect investors to join us. And we have specified each sector with the subsectors, and these are available for any opportunities. For example, the food, manufacturing of food. We have in the food 8 strong initiatives that waiting for investors being from the UAE or outside the UAE to take advantage of. Healthcare, we have 14 initiatives related to the healthcare. And the energy with water, we have 9 different initiatives. And these sectors could go to each sector. These are study cases available for any opportunities to be taken by any local and foreign investors.
Absolutely. And I think we have been witnessing the agility of Abu Dhabi government over the decade and more. From the 2008 crisis up until now, we have faced significant turbulent economic upturns and downturns. So one thing that is always standing up is Abu Dhabi government's agility when it comes to reprioritizing its strategies going forward. One thing that we have seen recently is significant investment on financial technologies, agricultural technologies. So can you please give us your perspective as to how these sectors are defined? And where do you see Abu Dhabi today when it comes to taking these innovative approaches to new sectors and diversifying the economy?
Yeah, we have a very clear strategy to have an economy that is based on a knowledge base and sustainable. So innovation is playing a very strong role in developing this economy. So as a government, there are different sectors supporting the innovators to create a big ecosystem and support the continuity and sustainability of the economy. We do have financial and non-financial support. And if I could summarize them, for example, Hub 71 is creating and is having like a host for any ideas surrounded by the technical support, by the financial support, by the advisors, by all type of means for that innovative idea to be explored, developed, and become big enough to be injected into the economy, creating a sustainable and with the growth of that economy. We have ADG, and we talked about fintech. Fintech is hosted in the ADGM's environment. And that is very much concentrated into developing the financial technology. We have Masdar, which is related to the environmental, the green environment that Abu Dhabi is trying to achieve. Universities are supporting that. We have different type of universities are ranked around this system to provide research, support, information. We have an entity that gathers the information, make them available to the people that they are looking for and try to develop. Then to have a very peaceful mindset for the innovators, we have even issued something called Golden Visa. Golden Visa basically is a long-term visa for an innovator. There are different sectors, but one of them is an innovator. So all what they need to take up in this case, all what they need to think about, all the facilities are around them, is how to come up with services, products that are out of the normal life that we see. And here where Abu Dhabi is being an opportunity for these type of innovators.
Absolutely. I mean, I would love to talk a little bit more about research and development and innovation in a little bit. But beforehand, while we're on like specifically agricultural technologies and kind of related to the pandemic, I think one very important focus on Abu Dhabi's, the UAE's agenda had been food security. Can you just elaborate a little bit on this and where we are in terms of food security for our country?
You are taking me to the first statement that was emphasized by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. Food and medicine. And food, at the beginning, to be frank with you, like every single spot on this earth, we have found difficulties and challenges. And those challenges were related to the supply and sometimes the environment itself, the situation because of the rain, wind, have affected the production of the food. So as a government, immediately, it was a very fast decision to have one, food security. And as we talk today, the food security is very, it's almost a year put for the community, talking about, again, everybody in UAE. And that was cooperated heavily with the private sector as well. The government sector played a strong role, but the private sectors complemented that. And here we've seen the communication and the agile of having the thoughts together. And then ideas came, why not using the water and the soil that we have in UAE, but not having it like a normal planting. It was, again, it goes back to the innovative. So there's a special entity are hosting the farmers and the people who are having new ideas how to farm and how to increase the production. Believe it or not, personally, I've seen so many abnormal ideas. And sometimes when you see them on the table, you think cost-wise they are expensive. But again, it's due to the technology, due to the innovations. Even cost of producing these products are sometimes cheaper than the normal conditions. And this is why today in Abu Dhabi, for example, we have seen a new type of licensing being increased, farming the desert with the very innovative ideas. And I'm very sure this would be an encouragement for even more. From our side, DED, what did we do? We have asked every big retailer to have a section farmed in UAE.
Absolutely.
And believe me, once those are put, they are filled by vegetables, by fruits. And now we say, you know what, let's expand that, let's increase that. And this would encourage more establishing or developing a new sector. Again, we don't want it to be normal. It should be based on the knowledge base, being innovative ideas in this sector, and have a sustainable growth.
If I'm not mistaken, there is a farming project which focuses on saline water irrigation. So, and the special seeds are produced that actually do use saline water to grow. So these are completely very innovative ways, and we create these in the middle of the desert. So it's quite unique, as you have said. Again, kind of like focusing on...
It's not even the desert. I've seen ideas planting the seawater. And believe it or not, again, this is the place for any ideas to be built, to be developed. And it just needs somebody to think out of the box and sit around this environment, and very encouraged for more ideas to be put on the table for us to be used.
I think when it comes to being a thought leader, our country, the United Arab Emirates, is unique in that sense. I think we're one of the first countries in the world to establish a Minister of State for Happiness, including a Ministry for Artificial Intelligence. So this brings me to my next question on R&D capacity, innovation, use of artificial intelligence, and big data, IoT. So actually, Abu Dhabi, over the last couple of weeks, we have seen the establishment of a new council called Advanced Technology Research Council. And organizations like Khalifa University, New York University, multiple different organizations have such focus on R&D and innovation. Can you please tell us what is your perspective, what is your opinion on R&D innovation when it comes to our emirate?
Again, to develop an economy and to have a diversification of the economy, always ideas are the one who drive this growth. And the ideas would require information, data, and that data information through technology could be converted into actions, decisions that would support. And here, every entity in Abu Dhabi today, for example, we have dashboards are relying on data that assists us and give us an immediate alert and signals of things and how to react. Even today in our services, we are thinking in terms of DED, for example, to use technology to communicate to the human being. Why is that? Because we have more than 100,000 licenses, and we want to provide these services 24 hours, 7 days a week to everybody at the same time. Technology is the enabler of doing that. Then here, when it comes to the private sector, again, we do understand the private sector, sometimes they need to be taken care of. And this is why universities are playing strong role to support the private sector, and sometimes going even to the schools. A few 3 years ago, I think I was in one of the high schools. I've seen so many innovative products that needed to be developed, and ask that particular person to be part of this development and to be presented to the community. And this is what we call supporting the SMEs and making it big enough to be, inshallah, a public company. The infrastructure, as I said earlier, the financial and the non-financial. The non-financial talks about the data that should be available to the people who are trying to develop that. And here we're a very dedicated team trying to consolidate this data, of course, filtered by universities and by the experts, and make it available to these people who would take advantage of. Why do we do that again? Again, to diversify the economy, relying on technology that would rely on data would be the main driver of the community that we are living at. By the way, talking about the technology, personally, I would, prior to this pandemic, I would not buy goods and products unless I touch them, I smell them, I feel them. But again, immediately, I have shifted my mindset to start requesting that. So I joined the community of my children. And this shows how flexible, again, how resilient we are to adopt the technology. And inshallah bil alameen, with the support of the government, private sector, the community, Abu Dhabi, in our next inshallah meeting, we will see radical change.
Absolutely. And I think, Mr. Al-Balushi, Abu Dhabi government had implemented e-government and has been spearheading digital transformation for quite a while now. And DED has been at the forefront of this. And you did mention at the beginning of our discussion the ease of doing business in Abu Dhabi. Can you elaborate how the pandemic acted as an accelerator to further digitalization when it came to DED's activities?
We were ready long time ago for providing our services digitally to the stakeholders. But then when the pandemic started at the beginning of the year, we had no option but just to lock down the offices and work remotely. We were not scared. We knew we had a big infrastructure. We knew that we had a big system. We knew we had a big database. But we were thinking, how would the community deal with this? To be frank with you, it was easy. And we've seen the reaction from the community very easy. But again, that didn't come from scratch or from a night. That came from a long history of that. And as I said, 98% of our services today provided electronically, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And even the communication, we have chatbot, for example, through special program, you could communicate to us if you don't feel that you want to talk. This is how we reach to our stakeholders. And now we are being so luxurious to our stakeholders. We have announced recently a project called Ma'ak. Ma'ak, it's amazing. It's you as a customer, doesn't matter how big, how small you are, doesn't matter how your capital is. I will treat you when you come to me like a 5-star hotel. And this is why we see people are distributed in all over the Emirates of Abu Dhabi today. They provide the services, to be frank with you, even to your home. And this is the thing that we are doing in our community. Why did we get to that point again? Because all of our normal services already provided into the technology. Renewing a license, by the way, all what it takes from you just to reply to a message, a phone message. And to issue a license, we have challenged ourselves in less than 5 minutes through your phone, you get a license in Abu Dhabi. And this is already, by the way, the number is getting higher and higher day after day. So we don't want our community to come to us. We will go to them and get the service to them technically. And this is where we are, by the way, today.
Very much so. And I think when we talk and elaborate on technology, the yin yang, I call it, is the importance of human capital and human talent. So there's a very important balance, of course, to be kept within this equilibrium. Can you tell us how important still is human capital for us in the Emirate, and what more are we doing in this period to upskill, reskill our employees and our staff, and what more can the private sector do to facilitate a better workforce?
Again, I'll go back to our vision. It's a knowledge-based environment. Knowledge-based environment, that means human being. The human capital is the most important driver of this technology. Do you remember just a while I told about the project Ma'ak? Markets came out because the human being, they have delivered the services immediately to our stakeholders, and now they are going to another service that they provide. I'm very sure very soon maybe we're going to create something that will further develop Ma'ak, and that human capital will go into another production, another services. So it is, technology would not run efficiently unless there are a right, highly skilled human capital are supporting and behind it. And this is where we see here we are having a DED. And you have mentioned about the private sector. Private sector is one of the, in addition to the human capital, private sector are one of the drivers to further develop the economy. You need the private sectors, and you need the SME to be part of these services. And this is why most of the services today that we do is we do have a communication with the private sector. By the way, every single service, every single rules we introduce, we don't do that unless the private sector is endorsing it, being part of it. Why is that? Because they would play the role of an ambassador to us, communicating it to the other peers to make sure that they're going to support it. But this is how important the private sector to us.
Absolutely. And just, kind of taking into consideration the last 6 months and the period that we have been through, when you look at the next 6 months, what are the immediate priorities for Department of Economic Development? And what projects are on the table that excite you the most?
See, our main priority is to make sure the private sector, especially the SMEs, are protected. This is why in the last 6 months, almost twice a month, we sit with a sector and we listen. And then we take all the challenges that they face and we put a priority for them. Some of them in our hand when we take immediate action and we implement. Some would require communication to the stakeholders, and that's what we do. And some would have a long term. But believe me, most of the services that the private sector have asked for, in no time they were available to them with the high quality and with their own requests. The private sector, this is one of our first priorities. Then the other sectors, the industrial. We in Abuظbي have a very clear strategy to diversify our economy away from oil. And we have all the infrastructure, the logistic, and the technology to further develop our industrial. And if I remember, in the last 6 months, believe it or not, we have seen 29 new industrial license has been issued.
Mm-hmm.
Take advantage and to grab the opportunities that are available. And they have injected 2.6 billion. So here are the result of the hard working for years. Even at the time of the crisis, people would jump in and take advantage of that. And again, if I go back, when it comes to the industrial, we have cleared which industrial will be requiring more investments and which investors that would require less investments. And to support encouraging these investments, we have introduced 2 main programs. One is called the in-country value. Is basically we have a formula that has a special calculation to see how much of that money goes back into the system, to the cycle of the economy. And this would encourage more of injecting it. And why is that again? Is to the big companies to continue supporting the mid companies and going back to the small companies. It's a big ecosystem. And the other program that we have introduced, the electricity tariff. Electricity tariff, for example, we have communicated clearly to the industrial that, for example, if they would work with innovative ideas to reduce the electricity doses and increase their production, we will give them incentives. Mm-hmm. And this is here, it goes back again to an innovative, knowledge-based economy.
Can you, I think our audience would like to hear more as well. You did mention 29 new licenses have been announced. Can you elaborate a little bit more on the sectors? Because clearly Abuظbي has great infrastructure when it comes to accessibility with Kizad, with Khalifa Port, and whatnot. So can you elaborate a little bit more on the key sectors that the investors have been coming from?
Yeah, the sectors I'm looking at, to be frank with you, I just grabbed this paper, but the sectors that we have highly concentrated on, again, is the food sector. The food sectors became so attractive because we have created the system for it. And we've seen a lot of ideas were put into the food sectors, and a lot of companies are following the food sectors. Then the healthcare. Today, if you look at Abuظbي, surprisingly, health-wise, it's not even protecting ourselves, but new ideas came to the table. And you've seen the vaccine, by the way. And this shows how strong the sector is. And we've seen the private sectors are coming and trying to have a big role in that. Do you remember at the beginning of the crisis when we had challenges having masks? And when manufacturers were started to produce the masks for the communities, then we have played, even as a DED, we have digged down and we have made sure that even the small business women would be part of this. And we have asked with the specific requirements, specification, more than 1 million masks were produced by the small community, by the small businessmen. And to be frank with you, businesswomen. And here, the sectors that came up, again, energy and water is one of the, we have scarce of water. And we would like, this is why we need to have ideas to support that. Every year, by the way, in DED, we have a program called Takamul. Takamul, we bring the innovators trying to put their ideas, and we go around them one by one and see what do they offer. And these are the sectors that we try to develop.
We've had very interesting conversations with Mubadala Healthcare as well. And one interesting that came up is Strata. As you know, they produce parts for, I think, Boeing and Airbus and, you know, like aircraft parts. And they started producing PPEs. So I think the whole business community, the manufacturing community came together in order to supply the demands of the market. So it was certainly a gathered effort for the whole emirate. So, of course, I mean, these are very interesting points. But when we're looking at, again, we did talk about the projects that are exciting to us, but on the other side, when we look at potential challenges, possible bottlenecks, do you have any comment on these? And if so, how are we planning to tackle them and how are we planning to solve them?
The challenges are around every sector. And again, how do we tackle them? The first solution when we face a challenge is by sitting with the right sector that is part of that on the ground, on the play, and listen to them. And when we listen to them, believe it or not, most of the solutions comes from them because they are the ones who are going through these challenges. Or what we do, sometimes we put a legal framework, sometimes we need to have some kind of agreement with other countries, sometimes we develop a new technology, or sometimes we even do a matching internally, and we come up with solutions. Challenges will not stop, but the way we see it, we have the flexibility, the mindset, the resilience in our thinking is to convert those challenges into opportunities, and this is what we do in our day-to-day business. Again, who is the main feeder to us? Is the private sector themselves. Then we try to look at the international best practice, how things are done in Singapore, how things are done in Switzerland, how things are done in the United States, and vice versa. Then we try to see what is suiting us and developing ourselves. This is why today we are ranked 12th in terms of ease of doing business. In terms of overall attractiveness, we are number 17th. Why is that? Because we have the ability to listen, understand, communicate, learn, and continue developing the things that we need to develop.
Very, very true. Mr. Balushi, as you know, we have covered quite a lot of subjects from research and development to human capital to food security to we have quite an interesting economy in our emirate. But when we're like as we're heading towards the end of our conversation today, what are the major lessons learned, and how do you foresee the next year ahead?
Lesson learned, be ready. Be ready in terms of the culture. This is important, by the way. Be ready in terms of the adoption. Again, human capital. Be ready technically. And be ready to do the fixes immediately. And this is what made Abuظbي unique. Again, if I dig down to DED, our reaction was very fast. We make mistakes, by the way, but that's fine. Make a mistake, fix it. But don't be scared of changing. Believe me, being an undersecretary of DED was not easy to wake up in the morning knowing not a single person at the office. But we said, let's take that challenge. Few days later, I said, you know what, guys? I have noticed the productivity of the employees increase. And this will take me with this type of the mindset, with the support of the private and the government to the government sector, with the support of the expat and the locals. So the future will be very bright. This is a challenge that everybody is facing. And if you go back to the financial sectors, for example, if you go back to each crisis, we always came out of it positively. And I'm very sure that if we have done it before, we're going to do it today. And I'm very sure the future will be, we're going to climb the growth positively.
Very much so. The reason I'm smiling is I think this period has accelerated so many things for us, and the actual buzzwords that we used to use became such real-time terms like disruption, acceleration, agility, flexibility. We have truly learned the meaning of these words. So as we're ready to come to an end in our conversation, Mr. Al-Balushi, is there anything that we haven't touched on? Is there anything else that you would like our audience joining us from the UAE and around the world, you would like them to know about our country, our emirate, or the Department of Economic Development?
About Abuظbي, UAE, and the Department of Economics, again, this crisis, this pandemic showed the quality of the governments, the quality of the people. To be frank with you, I'm very proud of the community that you are at, in terms of the awareness, in terms of the reaction, in terms of the discipline. Today, you go to the shopping mall, we are not used. We thought it was going to be too hot to wear a mask. But then you see a kid putting a mask on his face and trying to wear gloves and all the activities we are taking. It is not easy here. I'm very sure it's not easy. I'm very sure challenge is going to be there. But what makes the challenge very beautiful is how much we react toward it and convert it into an opportunity. And this is what's happening around us. And my advice, again, to our community, just try to be safe. It's not over yet. Try to be safe. And all of us, inshallah, will be able to get to the safe mode, inshallah.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to see you in person and have even more conversations and look back and talk about the days that we held these discussions digitally, inshallah. So our esteemed audience, friends and colleagues, we are coming to the end of our conversation today on Abuظbi's resiliency. And from, of course, Mr. Al-Balushi's comments, what we see for sure is how Abuظbي is ready to contain the economic fallout and facilitate recovery. So as such, I would like to thank Mr. Rashid Al-Balushi for joining me today for this conversation and shedding light on these important issues. And also I would like to thank, of course, our research partners, Ministry of Economy, as well as Abu Dhabi Department of Economic Development, and our sponsors, Total. And thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Al-Balushi. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you, everyone joining us from all around the world. I hope we were able to answer your questions on the important issues of Abu Dhabi. And our next roundtable is going to be on healthcare in Abu Dhabi, so which is, again, a very important subject to cover. So until then, masalama. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.